vehicles. Like when you eliminate the diesel and half the maintenance, you're miles ahead. But that's where the Australian market is at the moment. It's doing those sums, it's making those calculations. But when the numbers start to add up on each individual vehicle, that's when the smaller companies start looking and go, well, they've done all the homework. Transport industry is a really hard market in Australia. There's a lot of rules, regulations, but you have to understand where those benefits are. Because if you get it wrong, it will cost you a lot of money. If you get comfortable for a few seconds, you're probably getting left behind.
Seriously, things are changing so fast.
Electric vehicles aren't the end of the line. They're the beginning.
They're the beginning, correct.
Technology. Same with hydrogen, same with all these alternate fuels.
Hi, everyone. And so I want to welcome you to this week's podcast discussion. And today we have Colin Andrew. Colin Andrew is a specialist in growing customer relationships and business management in commercial vehicle. Before I start my questions, Colin, because we're going to be talking a lot about EV, what does your job mean when you say you focus on customer relationships and businesses in commercial vehicles? What does that actually entail?
Yeah, look, it's a good question these days, because what I feel is like since COVID, a lot of people got very comfortable with dealing with online communications.
Yeah.
I'm a little bit more old school, so I enjoy building the relationship sort of face-to-face and one-on-one.
True.
And I found that the businesses respond a lot more to that. It's like the pendulum swinging back the other way. People are actually craving face-to-face and one-on-one communication.
True.
Which is really interesting in the commercial vehicle industry, because quite often you're dealing with multiple different people to achieve the same result.
Yeah.
So my role has always been to build those relationships within the business and within the pipeline, because even with the role that I've got now, you're not always dealing directly with the purchaser.
True.
You're dealing with a company that may have, you're talking with the driver, you're talking with the workshop manager, you're talking with finance. So you kind of got to get a holistic overview of the business. And you've also got to understand what they want to achieve with the business as well. So although we look at like truck or commercial vehicle sales as a single unit, or like multiple units if you're selling into bigger companies, you've still got to have those relationships with each of those people and find out what they want. It's out of the transaction, I suppose, because the guy that's driving the vehicle or the girl that's driving the vehicle, they're not always interested in the same things that the accountant is or that the mechanic is. So understanding what each individual wants, I find is really, really important to the entire product, because ultimately we're all in a sale process. So now if we fast forward that to the EV game, in Australia, the electric vehicle game is very, very new. We are a long way behind the rest of the world in many ways. With EVs, we have a much different market to what, say, Europe or Asia have within their EV industry. So there's a lot more exploration and understanding right at the front edge of it. A lot of the bigger companies are getting into the electric vehicles because they've got the money to do it. It is a very expensive unit.
Yeah, it's very expensive, true.
So a lot of my role is more teaching and training rather than selling. It's still a sales process, but whereas, like with ICE vehicles or diesel vehicles, they just ring up and they say, yes, send me another vehicle, exactly the same one as you've sent me the last 100. Whereas now there's a lot more questions being asked about, okay, what is an EV? And it's not as we know, it's not a like-for-like exchange.
Yeah.
It's an ICE vehicle and an electric vehicle. Yeah. So again, it's building those relationships, building that trust with people, so that, and also having that, I suppose I've done it many times, had the courage to say, look, electric vehicle, you're not ready for electric vehicles yet. Your business isn't ready for it. Let's explore it further and get your business ready for it, so that when the time comes, it slots straight in. That's kind of my role. It's a relationship manager.
So before I ask further questions about it, you mentioned about EV and how some people do not even know what EV is, which is true. So when you meet somebody for the first time who doesn't know what an EV is, How do you explain it in simple terms for them to understand better?
That's a good question. It's more, well, again, the electric vehicle has its purpose. It's, as I said before, it's not a like-for-like exchange. The Australian market is very much we fill up with diesel once or twice a week, and we do 1,000 kilometers, and so having them understand that electric vehicle runs off batteries, it has to be charged at night or at the end of the run. It's having them understand that there's a different process and usage with a diesel vehicle. It looks the same, cabin's similar, but the purpose and the usage of electric vehicle is far different. And in some instances, it's far better. In other instances, it's not suitable. So it's managing that understanding and those expectations of what the vehicle can and can't do, because it does have its limitations. But it also has its massive advantages. Obviously, we all know they're quieter. So for inner city work, they're perfect. So yeah, it's just having them understand the differences between what it can and can't do, because everybody likes to compare it back to diesel, because that's what they're comfortable. So it's re-educating and reimagining how their runs can work, how their weight capacities, all of those sort of things. So yeah, it's an education process that can take quite some time, but again, once they get into it and start understanding it, I found a lot of people do get hooked. I was one of
them. So if I'm thinking about the EV and say I work in the supply chain industry, so I'm talking about commercial vehicles now. In your markets, Australian markets, do you think EV in commercial sector of the supply chain is profitable or will meet a need that it's finding in the market there?
It can be, which is a loaded answer. It can be. I was talking with the guys, I'll give you a quick little story. I was talking with the guys from Windrose trucks, fairly well known, the large prime movers. The Australian market, I'm yet to be convinced of the efficiencies of larger trucks in EV, like big prime movers. We do very long haul in Australia, and I don't see the efficiencies yet. They will become. But talking to the guy from Windrose, I said, I can see the prime movers being a perfect fit for wharf work, for moving containers around wharfs, getting them off wharfs, like storage yards and things like that. And he said, we thought exactly the same thing. He goes, until we ran the numbers. He goes, the thing is with wharf work or dock work, it's very short kilometers. It's really kilometer rate. He goes, the fuel bill is very minimal. So because they're not doing a lot of kilometers, they're not using a lot of fuel. He said, when we put the electric vehicle in there as a prime mover, they weren't actually getting the kilometers to make the electric vehicle a viable option.
Wow.
And I'm like, that was very interesting. That was a real eye-opener to me. Now let's flip that over to last mile delivery. Last mile delivery, for the most part, as the rest of the world, we're taking it from a distribution center out to the customer. On average, they're doing anywhere from 1 to 200 kilometers a day. 200 kilometers a day is a pretty big day.
Yes, a pretty big day,
Now, again, I do like telling my stories. I was at a truck show. The Brisbane Truck Show is probably the biggest truck show in Australia, late last year. And a skeptic came up. Let's look. And he was looking at the truck that we had on stand, and he said, "Oh, how many kilometers do these get?" I said, well, they get approximately 200 kilometers out of a single charge. So obviously, as we know, it depends on how you drive them, the same as any ICE vehicle. If you drive them really hard and heavy on the throttle, they use a lot more power. If you're nice and easy, they get really good range. So I said, look, on average, they get about 200 kilometers. And he said, well, that's not enough. And I'm like, okay, because we get that comment all the time. It's not enough kilometers. And then I started talking to him and fleshing out about his business and what he currently had. And he had an ICE vehicle, similar size. And he did little courier runs and things. And I said to him, oh, how often do you fill up your diesel? And he said, oh, I only fill it up once a week. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. And I know the truck that he had, it had about a 200-litre tank. And I said to him, we're chatting a bit more. And I said, oh, so how many kilometers do you get out of a tank? Because that's how ICE vehicle drivers usually work. It's not necessarily per day, it's per tank. And he said, oh, I get about 600 kilometers out of a tank. And I'm like, well, that's interesting, because you said that 200 kilometers wasn't enough for a single charge per day, yet you only fill your tank once a week, and you get 600 kilometers out of, so that equate, and I could see the process starting to work through his head. It's like, oh yeah, I'm actually not doing 200 kilometers a day myself. So it's that shift in thinking. And circling back to answer your question, for last mile delivery, that is the economics of purchasing a truck. You're not putting diesel into it, you're putting electricity into it, which is a lot cheaper if you set it up right. So the economics of it works out. Depending on the business and the runs, there's a crossover on meat of economy about 4 to 5 years in. And then after that, it's just a vertical climb with the value of a electric vehicle. But yeah, because at the moment in Australia, our purchase price is probably about a third higher to nearly twice as much as an ICE vehicle. That's what's sort of holding things back a little bit. The government are quite helpful. They've got some incentives and programs for helping purchase pricing, but it's complicated, and only major companies are really taking advantage of it. The mum and dad industry, the ones and twos, it is a very big expense, and they tend to stick with the ICE vehicles at the moment because they still don't really understand the EV industry. And again, it's a massive purchase price for long-term gain, as opposed to a small purchase price and then paying little hits along the way with diesel. But yeah, it's definitely, again, it's part of finding out about the business, part of finding out about what they expect from a vehicle, and the long-term economics of their business as well. So there's in the right business, there's massive gains to be had by going electric. But in the wrong application, it's a loss. It's a loss.
Okay, so now I have to take you back a little bit to what you said earlier. We're talking about the difference between Australian market for EVs and Europe and North America. So let's just say there's a prospect company that wants to come into Australia. What should he be concerned about if he's trying to bring in EV business to the Australian economy?
It's about, and oddly enough, we've had these sort of discussions with manufacturers out of the Chinese market is huge at the moment with
really huge
vehicle manufacturers. So you've got Jack, you've got Verizon, you've got there's about 4 or 5 different manufacturers all coming out of China. But car license in Australia, you can drive car license up to 4.5 ton gross vehicle mass in Australia. Now, the problem with that, and they do that because car license drivers are easier to find. So I'll go into your question. Sorry, a little bit off track, but it's just sort of setting up the process at the moment. Now, in other parts of the world, you can drive a truck or a heavy vehicle up to, I think it's a 5.5 or 6.5 ton on your car license. But in Australia, it's only 4.5 ton. So that restricts the type of vehicle that businesses will buy.
True.
So the issue is tear weight of the vehicle and payload. So that's a big hurdle in Australia at the moment is on car license, you can't get enough payload to make it viable for a car license vehicle. So therefore they go to the next category, which is up to 8.5, 9 ton. Those drivers are harder to find. And more expensive to employ. Businesses tend to not look at that because, again, it comes back to the economics. The car license in ICE vehicles, you get more payload. So the manufacturers at the moment aren't quite bringing in the right vehicles. What the businesses require. There are a lot of companies are starting to look at the 16 to 22 ton vehicles for garbage collection and specialty vehicles. But when you talk about the courier industry, they all want car license. Now, there's vans and things like that, but there are certain vehicles available, but they're still just the complications around certain vehicles. So any business coming to Australia wanting to set up really needs to look at what sort of work they want to do and the payload that they require. If they match that up right, then it's perfect. There's the 4 or 5 major cities that we've got that run EVs as last mile. It is set up. We are even our cities are quite spread out. But again, it takes that rethinking, because at the moment they'll throw all the parcels in 1 or 2 trucks, and they'll just do a really big run from one side of the city to the other side. Whereas those businesses now have to start thinking, okay, if we put all of the parcels in for the southern region, they have to start putting things into regions so that those vehicles are doing a lot more drops in a lot smaller range and municipalities. So there's a bit of rethinking to be had there as well. And a lot of companies certainly are. You've got the major companies like DHL, Whole Group and things like that. They are running those programs and they are working, but they still occasionally get caught out with vehicles that are doing longer runs than the battery life for a start. They kind of have to learn the hard way a little bit. But again, the changes in the industry are starting to occur because they're seeing efficiencies by doing that. And that's what will change the industry. When major businesses start seeing long-term savings on buying electric vehicles and just generally doing things better. But it does take time, effort, money, and new way of thinking.
A lot of resources, correct?
Exactly. Yeah.
So I noticed that during my research, I found out that the Australian government are doing a certain level of initiation and promotion in terms of EV, because I got to realize that when it comes to last mile delivery, the Australian Post has about over 5,000 delivery units that does the services. Would you consider that as some level of improvement? Is that enough? Does that promote the idea that EV should be welcomed by all SME businesses in Australia?
Look, it absolutely does have influence. Every time there's major changes within the industry, it usually comes from very major companies like Australia Post, like the DHLs, it's like the major transport companies. The Australia Post numbers are a little bit there's a lot of small EV like scooters, like and electric bikes. Okay. So they throw those into the pile as well. It's good and bad sort of accounting. They do have a substantial fleet of electric vehicles, but again, as I was saying before, it's having the right vehicle for the right purpose.
True.
And what's being imported at the moment is probably not quite right. It's close, but the manufacturers need to improve or need to talk to the Australian industry a little bit more to get the right vehicle.
Yeah.
But those major companies, they do have, like we've got IKEA. We've sold a lot of vehicles into IKEA for furniture delivery and box delivery. Those companies, when those companies get on board and start running all the numbers and they're the ones that are investing for progress of the smaller SMEs. Because when those numbers start to be published, and they've got the economy of scale as well, but when the numbers start to add up on each individual vehicle, that's when the smaller companies start looking and go, well, they've done all the homework.
Yeah.
We can go in there with an element of safety rather than just going in blind, because everybody resists change. But you've always got the early adapters that will queue up for hours to get the first iPhone, as opposed to waiting for the next day and just walking in.
Yeah.
And it's the same with vehicles as well. The Australian market is slightly, there are differences from the rest of the world as to what we get and the volumes that we get. Australia doesn't, compared to US, Canada, and China and Asia, the vehicle numbers that we sell here are not huge.
They're not huge.
So therefore, in order to make it viable for the manufacturers to make something specifically for Australia, there's a lot of push there. Like Isuzu is probably the biggest manufacturer in Australia. Kenworth are another major in the prime movers. So they're two different markets, but they're both dominant manufacturers. But even with that, there's elements that, we could, of design that we could do with in Australia that China or Kenworth just won't really cater for, because it's not, the market doesn't demand that sort of change in production line.
It sounds so different from what we're used to this part of the world. Like, it's just so different. It's not like a peculiar kind of market where the manufacturers, the people that make the bigger policies, like the government, and the small scale business owners, more like they have to sit down on the same table and talk about it. This is my needs. This is what you have to do for me. So that brings me to the table of the small businesses again. And you're a specialist in dealing with customers. What would you consider as crucial concerns? Not of the big boys now, but of the small guys, small last mile supply chain companies, the e-commerce platforms. What would you consider as a concern they have about switching from gas or diesel to EV vehicles?
Yeah, and it's a different way of thinking, because there's a couple of different small businesses. So there's again, what I call the mum and dads. There's a mum and dad businesses that have got a little courier run. They subcontract to a major company.
Yeah.
And their vehicle is their business, is their shop front. It's their single investment, or one or two. So they're looking to get out of it a little bit different. Whereas then you've got the other businesses where the vehicle is a tool of like your garden supply places.
Yeah, supply business. Yeah.
Or your shop fitting companies, or cabinet building, where they're using the vehicle sort of sporadically as a part of their business. Those people, there's benefits in it, but if the vehicle's sitting around, like a cabinet maker, I know a lot of cabinet makers buy small vans. They tend to buy the ex-rental vehicles from auctions. Now, the electric vehicles will filter through to that, but not for another 10 years.
Not for another 10 years, correct, yeah.
And again, they've got to have infrastructure there for charging. They've got to have understanding of how that vehicle will fit into their business. So is it suitable for them? Again, it's an understanding of their business. There may not be efficiencies there for it. They may do deliveries out to country towns that are 200 kilometers away. So they're not going to go out, do a delivery, charge it for 3 or 4 hours, or go to a fast charger and pay a lot of money. Fast charging,
a lot of money, yes.
Is very expensive.
Yeah, very expensive.
So the charging infrastructure has to be back to base to make it efficient. Whereas you look at again, I'll bounce back to the IKEA. There's a lot of companies that I know that subcontract to IKEA. Now, again, IKEA are very proactive with getting those companies up and running. So they give sort of discounts. They allow charging on site and storage. So there's incentives there that the bigger companies are starting to filter down to the smaller companies as well. Those sort of single investors in buying 1 or 2 vehicles, but they're long-term contracts with major companies. So again, the Australian market's a little different, because you've kind of got 2 different, and it's just the way that it's going. A lot of the smaller couriers, I started out that way, doing my own work, finding my own customers. But that over time got absorbed into the bigger contractors. Like you've got like major companies like Harvey Norman, which are the furniture distributor. They only use subcontractors, but they'll use a major company as the subcontractor, and then it'll subcontract out again. So everything filters down the line.
True.
It's that support and push. Like the IKEA board members decided that they wanted to go electric vehicles. So that started to filter down the line. And by the time we got to the end purchaser, which is the smaller subcontractor, they were having to circle back to the board and saying, well, yes, we're prepared to invest, but we need support, because it is a big crossover. There's a lot more initial investment for long-term gain, but we need to have that process put in place so that our investment is protected. And again, because the EV market is a small one at the moment, it's not like with an ICE vehicle, if you lose that contract, you can just go somewhere else with the same truck and do different work.
Yeah.
Electric vehicles are a very specific purpose. So if you lose a contract with one company, there's there's a select few that you can go to for similar sort of runs. It might be different product, but you still want to have it set up as a similar run.
Yeah.
You lose it with IKEA, you might have an option of DHL or subcontract to Australia Post. But again, they'll be very small windows of opportunity because they may already have enough couriers for themselves.
Yeah.
That's some of the hesitation within business. It's like they really want to solidify those contracts so that they know that for the 5 to 8 years that they're investing in a lease or purchase, that's where they're going to be working. So yeah, no matter what, and there are, I think IKEA and DHL do give guaranteed income per week, which is really good and really interesting. Yeah. But yeah, and that's specific to the EVs, so they get a guaranteed amount of work every week.
So you think that in the next 15 to 20 years, the market of EV in Australia is going to be far better than the way it is now?
I think in the Australian market, where it is at the moment, is probably where the car market was about 2 to 3 years ago. It's still in its infancy. Again, I'll circle right back to the start. We're in an education process at the moment. And again, Australia sort of, I think more so than the rest of the world, are quite reluctant to change. They're very skeptical about anything new. And like I say, the skeptic that I had at the truck show is like 200 kilometers wasn't enough, because that was their thinking. So as that thinking starts to change and as acceptance becomes the norm, as it is with electric cars at the moment, electric cars, you walk into a showroom and you've got a choice between an ICE vehicle, a hybrid, or an electric. And it's kind of what car suits you best.
Yeah.
And there's a level of acceptance with the consumer on that. With the commercial vehicle market, my theory with that is that those business owners that have already bought into the electric cars and taken that gamble like 18 months, 2 years ago, as we know, once you start driving an electric car, you actually love it.
Yeah.
That level of acceptance with the business owner or the managing director or whoever it may be that's in control of a business. So now they're starting to think back and go, well, my electric car works really well and I'm really happy with it, and the economics of it is far better than an ICE vehicle. Let's have a look at how that can work in a business with commercial vehicles. So the thought pattern is, okay, it works for my personal vehicle. Can it work? Can it work for my business?
Yes. Yeah.
Which is a great way of thinking. I think at the moment, the crossover is the vans, like small courier vans, whereas you've got Verizon, you've got Kia about to launch their van, you've got Volkswagen with their vans. There's a few really good vans, and the price parity between ICE and BEV is actually pretty close in the van market. Whereas with the cab chassis or larger commercial vehicle, there's still a big distance in price variation. For instance, in Australia, you can get I was saying before about like a car license, think like a renter van or something like that, a haulage van. Anyone can go and hire. If you had that in an ICE vehicle, you're probably looking around 90,000 to 100,000. With a battery electric, you're probably looking around 130, 140. So there is a big difference there. And people at that level, they do look at that purchase price. They don't consider that they're going to put $20,000 or $30,000 of diesel into it and maintenance and everything else. So that's the other education process. It's like when you eliminate the diesel and halve the maintenance, you're miles ahead. But that's where the Australian market is at the moment. It's doing those sums. It's making those calculations as to how commercial electric vehicles can work in their business and replace the ICE vehicles. And again, because they're still new into it, there's the infrastructure behind it that has to be calculated into the equation as well. I've walked into many businesses that their business would suit electric vehicles, but because they rent premises, the infrastructure of charging becomes a big issue.
Becomes a big issue, yeah.
And it's calculating whether or not they've got enough power from the grid that can feed to charge their vehicle. Now, if it's only one vehicle, everybody can. Like, it's just a 32 amp, 3-phase plug, basically, portable chargers. But if they're looking at, 3 to 5 vehicles, that's a different process for calculating how much power that they need. But again, the programming of a lot of that power grid is becoming very clever as to when they plug it in, what time is the cheapest power to charge, what vehicle needs to go out first, so that it's very clever systems that they've got. Constantly amazed by just how smart the systems are with charging.
I think that's something they're trying to fix here as well. And still one of the biggest concerns we have here, charging spots. Because if you have more charging spots that are kind of a bit close by, people will tend to want to get more vehicles because not everybody has the capacity to install a charging spot in his house. Most people live in apartment buildings that are not theirs, and they don't have that spot in their property. So the biggest concern we have still in North America is the amount of charging spots we have around. How close are they and how many are they? And even in Amazon, because when I worked in Amazon, what the Amazons do with the vehicles, with their EVs, they let it charge overnight. Then Amazon is big. They have this warehouse where they can literally set up a number of charging spots for their vehicles. So let it charge overnight. Then the next day, we use the vehicles. And it takes us all through the day. So globally, the biggest problems that EV companies have is where are we going to charge our vehicles? Because buying a vehicle that's EV is the one thing, but I need to charge it. And I don't live in my own house. So I think that's something that they also have to work on. That's something that globally they really have to work on.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest issue as the EV market grows, and it's definitely growing in Australia, is how that charging infrastructure and that power supply is really going to be catered for. There's a big thing in Australia that there's a very much a push against nuclear power stations.
Yeah.
And whereas now we're starting to get a little bit of a crossover with people's thinking and saying, well, we never wanted nuclear power, but maybe that's an answer. So there's politically in Australia there's that sort of way of thinking because they understand that there are major benefits with going electric vehicles.
Yeah.
Just the lack of noise. They're quiet. I say to people all the time, if I'm
fast and quiet, like
they are. Yes. Well, the trucks are the same. The trucks are very much the same. They're very quick off the mark, which is incredible. But I often say to people, especially bigger companies, it's like if I'm walking through the city, like I live in Melbourne, and if I'm in Melbourne City and waiting at a set of traffic lights, I would rather have 3 or 4 electric vehicles pull up at those lights waiting than one diesel truck.
Yeah.
Because the diesel truck is twice as noisy. It's not even twice as noisy.
It is.
It's noisy. Yeah. And it's pumping out emissions that I'm breathing in. Yeah. Whereas you put a dozen electric vehicles and you wouldn't even know that they were there. And they take off their flying, So it's that the fringe benefits of electric vehicles running around in major cities is massive. And put the cost aside, put everything else aside, and just go, they're quiet and they're responsive.
Yeah.
And just on that alone, you'd go, okay, that's a major benefit to any city. And again, I used to say to people that with the jack trucks that I was selling, there's a 9-ton GVM vehicle, which is a 10 pallet sort of van body. I could get that down my street in middle suburbia at 3 o'clock in the morning, and it wouldn't wake a baby, and you wouldn't hear a dog barking at it, as opposed to an ICE vehicle that would wake up the whole street. So it's very much a case of having. I've spoken to government and to major transport companies. I said, what if you could open up your delivery windows? You could deliver 2 hours earlier in the morning. You'd start your deliveries at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, and you could go through till 10, 11 o'clock at night, because the noise pollution isn't there. We've got roads around the city that are curfew roads because after a certain time at night and before in the morning, there's noise restrictions.
There's
Doesn't
restrictions.
eliminate the noise.
Yeah.
And a lot of councillors started to sort of think, oh yeah, well that is why we've got a curfew. It's not because of the weight, it's not because of the fact it's a truck or anything like that.
Yeah, it's just the noise. Yeah.
So I said, well, what if you eliminate the noise? Therefore, the economics of it are far greater because one, you can run a vehicle longer, so you can have two shifts with a vehicle. Your city's working more efficiently because you're spacing out traffic jams. There's major benefits to operating a couple of hours later at night and starting an hour or two earlier in the morning. And again, it's that whole shift of thinking. It's not just, you're not just talking about a quiet, responsive vehicle that doesn't any emissions. You're actually, there's a broader scope of benefits to just the vehicle itself.
Yeah.
And when the politicians and when the major companies start thinking that way, which they are starting to, but they'll be years off making any changes. Unfortunately, things don't happen faster down here when it comes to politics anyhow. But again, at least they're starting to understand that there are other factors involved within the industry that are major benefits to not only to the industry, but also to the city. It's a long road, that one.
A long road. Yeah, it's a long one. So yeah. I've got a final question to ask you, and that question boils on your profession. And so what is your advice as a specialist to businesses right now who are probably going to listen to this podcast and thinking about bringing EV business to Australia? That's one. Two, what is also your piece of advice for businesses in logistics and e-commerce and supply chain that wants to consider the possibility of moving their delivery or last mile delivery to EV in 2026?
Great questions. The advice I give to businesses is ask lots of questions and open your mind. There's other benefits. In Australia, a lot of businesses look at just the finances, but there's a lot of other benefits. But again, it's also understanding that their business may not be ready for electric vehicles either. There's a lot of homework to be done, but there's pros and cons, and they're not all fully tangible. A lot of like accountants tend to look at the facts and figures, which they should, but there's other benefits as well. Like there's so much to unpack on that one. It's a small benefit, but it's massive to drivers. They're not putting up with the noise of a vehicle, the fatigue of driving a diesel. So just the health benefits to the driver himself or herself is huge. Anyone coming to Australia has to understand the business and the sector they're trying to get into. There's multiple, like Australia's a growing country. There's no two ways about it. There's a lot of migrant intake here, which is fantastic, which is growing a city. So there is still major opportunity in Australia. There's no doubt about that. It is a tough market though. The whole courier industry, the transport industry is a really hard market in Australia. There's a lot of rules, regulations, and legislation, all of those sort of things. You have to understand all of those factors in the industry. The industry tends to chew people up and spit people out if they're not doing the right thing. There's no doubt, like the rest of the world, it's not an easy industry to do well out of at times, but you can do very comfortably out of it. It's talk to people in the industry, get involved in associations and understand rules and regulations. A lot of people get caught out by not fulfilling all their obligations within the legislation and things. Again, I always look at it from my own point of view. The truck salesman is your business partner. I think all salesmen get tainted with the same sort of thing. It's like, oh, you're just trying to sell me something. Find a good sales guy. Find a good sales guy that actually is interested in your business, not just your purchase. Because when you find that person, they'll actually steer you in the right direction. They're hard to find. There's not many of us around like that. But yeah, it's not just the purchase of a vehicle. It's a business, and you have to look at the vehicle like any other asset of your business. If you're a plumber, you're looking at plungers and spanners. If you're a welder, you're looking at your welding equipment.
True.
If you're in transport, your truck. It is another tool of the trade, but it is a key element. And I think the transport industry is a very unique one because you're out there on the roads with
You're always on
amateurs.
the road, yeah.
Yeah, and you have a lot of other factors to deal with other than professional drivers.
Yeah.
So the EV game in Australia, it's in its infancy. There's no two ways about it, but it is growing. It will be niche. I think certainly in my lifetime, you won't see an end to ICE vehicles. There's still many factors that ICE vehicles are far better at it than BEV will ever be. But the niche industries where battery electric has benefits, the benefits are huge.
Yeah.
But you have to understand where those benefits are, because if you get it wrong, it will cost you a lot of money.
It'll cost
If
a
you
lot
get
of
it
money.
right, you'll be miles in front. So it's a lot of homework to be done, but it's being done by big companies and small ones. There is the information out there. There's quite a few industry associations out there that are pushing for electric. I'm involved in a few myself, so it's an exciting time. I've been involved in the transport industry for like over 30 years. And I keep on saying that the acceleration of the industry and the technology over the last 2 years has been far greater than the previous 30. It's really an interesting time in transport, I think, across the world at the moment, because people are saying they're moving more equipment, they're moving more product, they're looking at doing it more efficiently. It's really exciting to see where it's all going. And yeah, the work that's getting done today will be benefiting our kids and generations to come. So I look at it that, a couple hundred or so years ago, Henry Ford sort of was out there selling this new fandangled horseless carriage, and everybody said, that's never going to work.
Yeah, true. And it was.
It's the same thinking. Horses are still out there. The horses still have a very good use for certain things, other than just
till date, yeah.
But there's technology that's advancing faster than we can imagine. So it's an exciting time in the industry. If you get comfortable for a few seconds, you're probably getting left behind.
Seriously, things are changing so fast. They're changing so fast.
It's incredible. It is amazing. I'm constantly amazed with just how much change is happening in the industry, how much technology is being brought in, how creative everything is.
Yeah.
One thing we didn't really touch on in Australia, they're still looking at hydrogen as well. But the hydrogen infrastructure, I think, is going to be the holdback with all of that. I think for long haul, intercity sort of transport, hydrogen is probably a much more efficient fuel. But I think the efficiencies of scale and the infrastructure there is probably not going to hit Australia for another 10 years. And by that stage, there'll be other technology that will overtake it.
So, over there, yeah.
Yeah, again, the creativity and the exploration is there. There's a lot of very smart people doing very smart things. But I get the sense in the industry at the moment, and with technology in all vehicles, we're at a stepping stone stage. Yeah, electric vehicles aren't the end of the line. They're the beginning.
They're the beginning, correct.
Technology. Same with hydrogen, same with all these alternate fuels. Everybody's sort of being creative and going, well, what can we do better? How can we do it better? And that I find really, really exciting. I'm no genius when it comes to inventing things like that, but I look at what the inventors are doing and go, wow, that is amazing.
Thanks a lot, Colin. We've
really talked
a lot. Together, we've discussed a lot. We've learned a lot from you, Colin. We've talked about EV in Australian markets from the manufacturer's point of view, from the government's point of view, from the SMEs, which are small business enterprises and supply chain industries point of view, and from the drivers. We've also mentioned about the drivers themselves. So I'm sure a lot of people will benefit from it. Even individuals who don't even own businesses that want to buy EV would also benefit from it. So I do appreciate the time taking it this morning to talk with me, and I appreciate that, Colin. And I'm looking forward to seeing you in the future to discuss more things with you. I thank you very much, Colin. And this is how we wrap up.
For having me.
This is how we wrap our episode for the week, and see you guys next week. Bye.